It's a Thursday at 3 p.m., and you know what that means. Time for another DraftKings best ball draft here in the world of Stochastic. Of course, I'm Chris Spags here with you one more time. Maybe the last time. I'm not really sure. I think we might have another stream on Tuesday, but either way, we're doing what we can to compete for a $15 million prize pool on DraftKings, $2 million to first place. And of course, I am already in a draft room here, picking in the I would say completely uninfluential 1.7 draft spot here. The 7th spot in the first round would be a much less robot way to say that. But of course, it is a important thing here to talk about our 3 rules of thumb we always try to hit on before we hop into a best ball draft. Because here on Stochastic, we use some great advice, great sim data as well. Lots of winners on the channel. Best ball, not quite as figured out as the world of DFS is. So trying to have structure in mind is a really important part of best ball. If you are getting your final entries in here in the home stretch with 1 week left until NFL season, first rule of thumb, though, is going to be looking at the average draft position, being mindful of that. This point of things, people throw that out the window a little bit more because at this stage, you're getting in your last 15% of entries right now on DraftKings Millie Maker. So people are looking for different combos, things like that, reaching really early for guys like your Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt types, guys that are big surgers based on the news we have in the preseason. That's okay as well. But in general, you want to soak up value where you can. If Jamar Chase is available at the 5 spot, soak him up if you can, pick him in that room because there's not going to be a lot of teams that have Jamar Chase at the 105 spot. So things like that, always important to be mindful of. And ADP does kind of serve your DFS equivalent, your median projection, ownership, kind of roll into one data point. Second rule of thumb, stacking and correlation. Try to stack up much like you would in DFS, QB plus a wide receiver. You can do even more than you would in DFS. 2 receivers, a tight end, an RB, multiple parts of that offense can be a good thing to do in best ball because you're really trying to capture that rising tide of scoring that occurs for a team if they beat out their projections over the course of a season. Bengals would be a very good example of that last year, in particular at the end of the year where things consolidated more. Chase Brown had a great role in the red zone overall. T. Higgins having the good role that he had overall in the red zone and target share being very similar to Jamar Chase. And Jamar Chase, of course, dominated. Even Mike Gesicki in that offense last year. You kind of get the idea when you look at a team like the Bengals of how that all works out to stack an entire team like that in particular last season. And the third rule of thumb here, your expected value is realized in week 17. So that's a big thing to keep in mind here. Sometimes in Twitter in particular, people get caught in this, I would say the measuring contest. Well, we keep it PG here on a DraftKings stream up top. The measuring contest of advance rate and all of that. And yeah, you want to advance the league average, the expected 16% advance rate you should have based upon how many teams are advancing in each pod, 2 out of 12 on DraftKings. You want to have that. But you also want to have teams that are able to spike in the playoffs that have the kind of proper allotment of draft capital, having enough at RB and wide receiver and tight end and QB, balancing that all out. So the money's paid out in week 17. It's a main thing to keep in mind. Christian McCaffrey, a guy I've been somewhat low on this draft process here, but I do think building a nicely projected McCaffrey team down the home stretch here of drafting on DraftKings feels like a good move. So we'll go McCaffrey at the 7th spot here in the first round. And again, building for week 17 as well. If we are trying to realize that expected value that comes then, building a team that might have Niners-Chicago correlation, 2 teams that play in week 17 would be one way to try to attack that. But McCaffrey start either way. And for McCaffrey, I mean, look, if I'm being real about it, I'm taking him here in this room. But I do think that there's some concern for me. Some of the earliest quotes that came out for the Niners trading for Brian Robinson, it was something that I think a lot of people missed, maybe because they didn't want to hear it, maybe because they didn't see it, who knows. But for Christian McCaffrey, Brian Robinson coming in, they mentioned wanting to play these guys in the field together, wanting to get Brian Robinson some touches, misdirection kind of plays that McCaffrey might take some attention away. That's something teams talk about a lot in the preseason, pony personnel, when you have 2 running backs in the backfield and you have sort of this opportunity theoretically to exploit some mismatches. And you could do that with Brian Robinson and McCaffrey. Does that mean they actually will do it? That's a totally separate question, obviously, and one that I think is a lot harder to pin down. But, there's opportunity for Robinson, even if Robinson takes a Jordan Mason style role where you're talking 10 or so, 8 to 10 touches a game. That could include some red zone equity. McCaffrey himself was under the 5+ red zone touches a game he's had his entire career. Last year was closer to about 3 a game. So that's where I would have some concern taking McCaffrey where I did at the 107 spot is when you get Brian Robinson in, it does feel like it kind of upsets the equation a little bit. And to me, enough to drive McCaffrey towards the turn would be a more where I'd say you should go around where Derrick Henry goes. I think it'd be more fair for McCaffrey with that adjustment, but it is what it is. Pick coming up here though. Pick 18. Looks like a very RB rich spot. Chase Brown, Jonathan Taylor, Devon Achane, a guy who will be playing week 1, it looks like, but he's not been available later on in rounds through most of the draft process, I would say. Chase Brown at this point, the one who's come up the most. I'm going to hope that this combination is at least somewhat unique relative to a tournament on DraftKings that's been, it's currently about 85% filled. A McCaffrey Achane start earlier in when the tournament first opened. McCaffrey was going at the turn alongside Achane, so I think that combo might have been more frequent at that stage of things. With Achane having a soft tissue injury, which we found more recently, it's a calf injury for Achane. He's fallen more in rooms. I've seen him go, pick 22, 23, 24. So I think the McCaffrey Achane combos definitely happened enough times that people wanted it over the last few weeks. But I don't have a ton in my portfolio. So I'll take a shot here on two guys that have had, I would say, arguably the biggest ceiling in fantasy football over the last, 5 years we've seen running backs play. So McCaffrey and Achane start full RB piggy mode for me here in one of my last stochastic best ball drafts of the summer. Shout out to all you guys hanging out here. Appreciate all the chats. JJ McCarthy season. Sure. Why would it now be it? I feel like McCarthy falls in rooms more often than he has in any part of the draft cycle. But I like McCarthy. I think, how he played in Michigan or how he was forced to play in Michigan, definitely a little more risk averse than we want to see our fantasy QBs being, play and be overall. So I hope that, the governor's taken off a little bit more with this Kevin O'Connell offense. And it seems like, based on how they've talked about McCarthy and how he's basically held the starting job the entire offseason with no threat, it does seem like he's been locked into this role and there's got to be some trust there. But, McCarthy was pretty risk averse the last time we saw him play at Michigan. So we'll see how it is. Let's see what else we got in the chat. I saw the best ball subreddit talking about EMAC yesterday. Oh, okay. That's what best ball side. I didn't know there was a best ball subreddit, but I'm glad to see EMAC is getting the praise. Of course, EMAC hopefully running for president again in 2028. And this time he's taking it down. This time he doesn't have any real competition. So he's going to get after it. Did I watch the Best Ball Bros video? I did actually have, I believe, a cameo in it. Technically, a really almost too spot on AI image of me and heading to Altoona, Pennsylvania in that one. But that's the less said, the better at this point. We could. But yeah, funny as always, my pal Pete Overzet. You'd also catch in the YouTube TV Brazil broadcast, the football game with the Eagles and the Packers, whatever that is. Comes up that Friday. Pete's going to be on that. So shout out to Pete Overzet. Always doing a great job. The guy who made me as knowledgeable as I hopefully am about best ball. He's a big part of that. And obviously combining my own knowledge, having run Football Outsiders in the past, having won good amounts of money in NFL, DFS, in particular showdown stuff has been my biggest breadwinner. But now it's best ball. So hopefully you guys are getting ready for NFL season, feeling prepared. Of course, Stochastic, some good deals coming up for NFL DFS packages. I'm sure keep your eyes peeled to the channel to see more about that coming up. But we do have a pick coming up here, pick 31, with our McCaffrey Achane start. Certainly going as RB heavy as we have, does seem like it'd be a spot to go receiver potentially. JSN, I think better on PPR sites than half-point PPR. That said, pretty decent value on Josh Allen. Lamar, same thing. I've been scooping more elite QB lately, whether it is on DraftKings, of course, other sites out there as well, getting my final entries in across all the major best ball platforms, which if you follow my @SplashPlayPod channel. But getting a lot of Josh Allen lately, feel like he's falling enough in rooms that people have enough at this point. I don't take as much elite QB, so I actually might get over the field on Josh Allen and Lamar. The issue is I'm now not getting as much Jaden Daniels because I am getting more of these guys. So wanted to be 2x the field for Jaden Daniels, one of my biggest stands last year as a rookie, a guy that I defended from the Drake May sycophants out there at every turn. And I would like to have, that 2x the field number on Jaden. But if I keep getting Josh Allen, keep getting Lamar, I don't think it's going to happen. Mika Egbuka, the rise here, pick 32, going literally 2 spots after his much more established teammate Mike Evans. Injuries right now racking up for the Bucs, though. Chris Godwin, earlier, I think in terms of scheduling than we thought he'd be in the last couple weeks. He's going to be available to practice, I guess, basically right now on a shot at returning week 2, more likely returning week 4 or 5, the initial projection they had for him. But Egbuka is also going to benefit from Cade Otton being banged up right now. Leg injury he sustained, which apparently is different than a hamstring pull or something he had earlier in camp. So for Cade Otton, might not play week 1. The runway for Egbuka is great. I do think when you're taking Egbuka above guys who are known quantities like JSN, I am not a Tyreek Hill fan, but certainly you could spin a yarn about him going back to the good old days when he was actually a target that mattered a lot in Miami and was a guy getting really the ball per snap more than almost anybody in football besides some of the lead running backs. That role wasn't there last year for Tyreek, but maybe to save his job, Mike McDaniel does that a little bit more. You can make the case, point being, for a lot of guys, I think, as a more credible projection play, even season-long play than Igbokwe. I just think if he's going to go at 32 for you, and this is really early, it's like he normally is going, I think his DraftKings ADP still got to be around 50, right? 51.2. He's going much later normally at that range. I still think you're running up against guys like Calvin Ridley, Jameson Williams. I'd rather take those guys. I just think the Igbokwe seed's gotten to be a little bit too much. People saw great rookies last year, and they saw them, guys I think who really were outliers in terms of how they came into the league and how they played in college to lead up to that. This year, guys like Igbokwe, I think we're good, but this is gonna be a hot take. Don't clip this one and yell at me. Igbokwe to me looks a lot more like Josh Downs than he does Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors. Like, I think that's the case. So I wouldn't take Igbokwe at pick 32, but people may. Jaden Daniels comes back. We're not going to take him, unfortunately. It would be really stupid to do double elite QB. Devontae Adams, though, a faller lately. One thing I saw tweeted today, talking about the comparison between rookies and vets. People often do, say late season production is going to be rookies, the guys breaking out late. But also, in terms of results we've had, Devontae Adams has been a guy, even when he's had terrible years last year for the Jets, for the most part, obviously the start with the Raiders really bad. Then comes playoff time, he ends up spiking a bunch, ends up being a guy that matters to either advance teams in the playoff rounds or actually win money at the end. A couple of years ago, same thing when he had a pretty mediocre year. Ended up going off against tough coverage with the Broncos. I think he went up against a young Pat Surtain one week that mattered for the playoffs. Ended up, I think, being on winning lineups as well in week 17. Devontae Adams types, I feel like, just get undervalued a little bit. In a world where Igbokwe is going 32, I'm pretty comfortable taking Devontae Adams at 42. So the team so far, McCaffrey, Achane, Josh Allen, Adams, and Devontae Adams, the start of us trying to dig back in at receiver after really spending capital elsewhere to start. Do I have a good amount of Kittle? No, I do not have a lot of Kittle. And frankly, it's one of my bigger exposure regrets. But at this point, he just hasn't worked out that well with teams I like to build and the structure I like to have. I really did prioritize earlier on Trey McBride, Brock Bowers. McBride also just happened to align a lot where I was picking in the early part of the board, having some Bengals exposure, building the week 17 stack off of that because the Bengals are playing the Cardinals in week 17. I got a lot of McBride early on, and I also just felt like he should have been closer to 1-to-1 with where Brock Bowers is priced. But I wanted to priority-wise get like 33% of McBride and Bowers. It's going to end up being for me closer to, I think right now across everything, like 25% of those two guys. But as a result of kind of prioritizing those guys, I got less Kittle. I do think for Kittle, like having Juwan Jennings not be available, early in the season, potentially his calf injury. The GM there was saying that basically they feel at this point his calf injury is legit. The contract thing is also hanging over there. Both things can be true. I still think once they give him money, the calf injury disappears. But if they don't give Juwan Jennings money, he's now got to, continue his sort of maybe faked holdout / let the calf injury continue to quote unquote heal. That opens up Kittle to be even better than he was last year. And he was already out targeting Ayuk in that offense. He had a 25% target per out run, which is a pretty strong mark for a tight end. Also a very high 0.58 EPA per target, a data point that I use a lot, expected points added from Sports Info Solutions. That's why I use everything to understand football. Kittle, point being, incredibly efficient, well-targeted, as well as any tight end in football. I don't have a lot of him, but it's one of my pain points that I just didn't work out for me to get a lot. So if you have a lot of Kittle, more power to you. I think it's a great pick. I just would prefer the young guys. If I'm not taking the young guys, I'd rather have different structure and not have an early tight end. So late tight ends too good this year is ultimately how I feel about it. But Kittle's definitely one where like it gives me the pangs of regret, concern, whatever you want to say. We're on the clock here. So we got our Devontae Adams, a little bit of a fall for DJ Moore, a little bit behind ADP for DK Metcalf. I'm on DraftKings. A lot of times people do also just let guys fall here for Calvin Ridley with the Q tag. But I'll go DJ Moore, still a guy I believe in. I think the fact that he's been working out of the backfield a little bit for Chicago might be a good thing for him, getting some easy PPR touches, maybe some Debo-style run plays for himself that haven't been there in the past. I think for DJ Moore, I've seen him fall a lot, whether it is full-point PPR sites like DraftKings, half-point PPR best ball sites as well. I believe in DJ Moore. I don't know. And I think he wasn't great last year. Both he and Odunze got outperformed by Keenan Allen. It was a big part of why I was drafting so much Keenan Allen all offseason, even including before he signed with the Chargers. I think that's not a great thing for Moore, but that entire offense was such a mess. Ben Johnson, I strongly believe, is one of the smartest guys scheming plays that we've had in football in the time period. I've definitely at least done this professionally. So I think it's a thing right now where people are sort of making a stand against Chicago. And then Jacob Sanderson, very sharp guy as well, had a similar take, saying that maybe Ben Johnson's the new Josh McDaniels and he's like a boy genius that we're crowning too early. I strongly feel the opposite way. And I believe DJ Moore is a good part of that. And Odunze as well, same thing. Luther Burden, I'd be more concerned about. Colson Loveland as well, because you have, vets there that I think can be in the mix, taking some of that route share away. In terms of Cole Kmet being a guy who's still getting paid good money by the Bears, you could hold back Loveland a little. Still have Olamide Zaccheaus, who this regime did bring in the offseason with kind of a plan in mind on how to use him. I think it's not great for Burden. But Moore and Odunze and DeAndre Swift, all guys I have a lot of exposure to across every platform, and I feel really strongly about. If you haven't taken them in best ball, get some shares now. Bryce Young, Bucky Irving in 2026 for Jaden. I could not care less about Dynasty. Jaden to me is one of the best QBs in football. So if you value QB that much, sure. I would want to give up Bucky because I think Bucky is also one of the best young running backs in football. But I think you have a better shot of replacing Bucky production than you do replacing Jaden Daniels production. So I would probably take Jaden, but not a thing I care about too much. Not how I gamble. It's not a thing I focus on. We got Josh Allen, Christian McCaffrey, Devon Achane, Devontae Adams, DJ Moore. Rashee Rice, some clarity on him. 6-week suspension. Going to be out the early part of the year. We are trying to make it up a little bit more at projection. So I do think going to a Deebo Samuel might appeal to me a little bit more here. And I am going to do that. I'm going to go Deebo. Let's see what the room thinks of Rashee Rice. I don't think he's going to come all the way back around here. Our friend of the Stochastic Avatar, Short Gamer, guy's been in my Splash Play community for a while as well. So shout out to him. Very smart guy. Has won a lot of money, including Millie Makers before. So shout out Short Gamer. Do you see you got the Stochastic Avatar? Fear him, even if it's in a best ball room. That said, for Short Gamer here, I see him on this side of the board. I'm hoping this side of the board doesn't want to take Rashee Rice because they're like, oh no, he's out 6 games. I could never draft him now. And in reality, for you out there, if you are a person that's been low on Rashee Rice, especially under that 8% exposure that everybody will have across every pod of Rashee Rice, taking him now when you know there's some certainty there, when you know how to build a team around his time being out, he's not going to miss the middle of the year. He's going to miss the first 6 weeks. I think it's a good time to take Rashee Rice. As long as you can build a team around that, that still makes sense. In this room, he goes to a guy with just A.J. Brown in front of him. So this guy, maybe not the right team to take Rashee Rice, to be honest, but we'll see how he does the rest of his team, I guess. If you're taking a guy like Rashee Rice or, Chris Godwin, who could be out 4 weeks, 5 weeks, things go bad, who knows how much he misses, something like that. Darnell Mooney seems like he'll be back in week 1. He returned to practice today for the Falcons. So that's when I was buying the dip on. Joe Mixon, if you want to take the risk, like I've taken a lot this offseason because I think he would just project really well if he were to play. If you're taking a team like that, you want to make sure you're building projectable players around that guy and the amount of time he's going to miss. So if you're going to miss 6 weeks for Rashee Rice, you want to have like 2 receivers ahead of him. Or, for this guy as well, he should pound receiver the next 1, 2, 3 rounds, maybe to make sure that you have enough time, enough receivers to cover rather the time that Rashee Rice is going to miss. And he could absolutely handle that as well because he's got Gibbs, he's got Breece Hall, he's good at running back, he's got the elite QB, he got the elite tight end. So we'll see what he does here. If he takes a receiver, I think he's playing it smart. If he takes a running back, I think he's blown the opportunity he had with this little bit of a Rashee Rice fall. And that's best ball for you guys. Best ball 101 here we're talking about. All right, so he goes receiver. So there we go. Chris Olave, some nice design touches in the preseason, which should help for PPR points in particular. I've taken more Olave and Shaheed since seeing their preseason usage. I do love Kellen Moore as a coordinator. I would say he and Ben Johnson, 2 of the top 3 in terms of how I view them and esteem and what they mean for the teams they've had. Obviously, you say that for Kellen Moore after he won a Super Bowl last year. The point being, seeing guys get scheme stuff in the preseason, the usage patterns you get, that's something to take away from it. I think Olave, to me, a usage winner in the preseason, if not a statistical winner, with him not putting up like some crazy outlier game in his handful of drives that he played. I see the super chat. I'll get to that question in a second here. But we want to keep getting more at receiver if we can, I think. Mahomes falling, that does really nothing for me. Jacoby Myers, trade rumors around him. Still think he's a decent PPR play. I've been low on Stephon Diggs this entire offseason, and I don't want to really want to change that now. But I'll go Diggs. I maybe just get a little exposure here. I have been buying the Jacoby Myers dip a little bit. Of course, Myers, if you haven't seen it, requested a trade from the Raiders because basically his deal's ending this year. They haven't given him new money, and his replacements already been drafted, basically, or presumably, with Jack Besh coming in, Dante Thornton as well, looking pretty good in the preseason. He doesn't really play the same spots as Jacoby Myers, but still another receiver that they can groom and give some target share to. Myers is a guy I'm still comfortable taking. But I don't take a lot of digs. I think getting him at 79 is pretty nice here. We are trying to make it up at receiver, so I'll go digs here. Where am I taking Addison? So this ties in here. I am taking Addison around the spot, and I actually would say for me, Diggs versus Addison, I still think it's pretty close, even with the 3-game suspension. It comes down to how you want to play best ball. Like a lot of people freak out, and shout out for the super chat as well. Appreciate you, you guys pairing these two together. Point being, for how I view things, I want the upside for week 17. That's priority number one. Like we talked about for the 3 rules of thumb, the expected value is paid out. The $2 million on DraftKings is paid out week 17. I say for the top 10 finishers, you all win 100K at least. If you finish that high on DraftKings, you want to have the best team possible for week 17. So that means absorbing injury guys, even if you think they have, you're going to miss a lot of points. You're going to have uncomfortable 4 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever the case may be for some guys. I think Jordan Addison type is really valuable because number one, you get direct leverage on Justin Jefferson, who's going in the first round. And if he plays well the entire season, a Jordan Addison type offers you a lot of leverage when you get into that week 17, final 1,000 person tournament to actually win all the money. So I think an Addison to me is the kind of guy I like to take a lot of, and people kind of go like, oh no, he's going to miss 3 games, but you can have a guy play like shit for 3 weeks anyway in best ball, and he won't make your roster. You're better off just kind of taking that guy usually anyway, if you think he's a talented enough player. So we have the Josh Allen bet. We are still making it up at receiver. Addison versus Khalil Shakir is pretty close to me. I mean, they both were going the same range before the injury for Shakir, the high ankle sprain, Addison suspension news. But I'm going to go Shakir here, get some Buffalo correlation because I don't think Keon Coleman's going to come back. Seems pretty unlikely to me. Josh Palmer available later, but I think Shakir is wide receiver 5. I think the balance of draft capital now works well enough. So an elite QB team, Josh Allen. At RB, Christian McCaffrey, Devon Achane started 2 RBs early with Josh Allen the third. So part of why I'm really going on my way to prioritize receivers because we spent a lot at RB and QB to start. Devontae Adams, DJ Moore, Deebo Samuel soaking up some value / taking guys I just believe in who should score a lot of touchdowns, hopefully, or PPR points. Stephon Diggs, not a guy I'm crazy about, but sometimes you just got to take the guy when he's there. If you think it makes sense for your build. And Khalil Shakir, wide receiver 5. I mean, it really wasn't much I would have taken over Shakir here, so I can live with that one. But I think in terms of just like team balance, might have been better to take a Travis Kelce type for tight end. Might have been better to take an RB, though a lot of the RBs there didn't do a lot for me. But I'm cool with getting wide receiver 5 out of the way. It's not my 150. I've kept a few in case I have to keep doing streams, but I'm also only going to put in like half the 150 max. Oh, yes, a lot on DraftKings, though. If you are getting in 150, good time to do it now. I would also say, too, for DraftKings, again, this is a DraftKings sponsored show. This is not a sponsored statement, though. Don't think you're going to get overlay on DraftKings because it's already basically paid for the amount. You might get reduced rake, but I would say this is as close as DraftKings has been the last few years to filling their tournament. So don't expect there to be overlay. Don't expect there to be wild card entries. There's still a possibility of that. I think DraftKings is going to be pretty close to filling. So if you are getting entries in on DraftKings, make sure to do it now. Again, 1 week till the season starts. If the tournament fills before that, obviously you won't be able to get entries in. But a $15 million guaranteed prize pool, and once you draft that team on DraftKings, you have to touch it again. You have to set your lineup again. You're just drafting this one team, and it's taking the best scores every week if you're not familiar with how best ball works. But really the big thing to me that stands out in the world of best ball, and part of what gravitated me towards it more so, while still playing a lot of DFS, is that DFS, going in on a weekly basis, using stochastic tools and data, you got yourself a shot, but you're competing against the sharpest that field has ever been, those structures have ever been. Best ball, I would say, in some respects, there's more tools, more data, more resources to be sharp than ever. There's also a lot of people that I think learned the wrong lessons from last year. And because it is every year is just a single slate, there's a lot more upside in terms of reaching that true potential to win all the money. So for how things look right now for DraftKings, number one in best ball, you have a really good shot at winning money in a way that I think is much harder to do in DFS. Even though obviously sites like Stochastic, some of their competitors out there, I'm sure as well, feel the same way. They'll give you an edge that you wouldn't have otherwise. best ball, it's just about building the best little, I don't know, best little rocket ships to try to get to the moon. Turtles trying to get to the shore. Whatever analogies we can come up with. All right. We got picks coming up here, or a pick coming up here. 1-2-5-0 build. Josh Allen, Christian McCaffrey, Devon Achane, Devontae Adams, DJ Moore, Deebo Samuel, Stephon Diggs, Khalil Shakir. So definitely balanced enough, I would say, but open to really, we're open to a lot of things here. We're open to all sorts of broad horizons. Travis Etienne, I think would be a nice RB pick at this point. Does seem like it'll be a split running back by committee backfield for Jacksonville, but Etienne certainly in PPR feels pretty good. I'm going to go Etienne here. Other guys in this range, I take a lot, but I don't think it makes sense for this team. Justin Fields, an Allen Fields combo is pretty fun. Without Garrett Wilson, I think you're going to run into a lot of people that have that stacked up. Earlier in the offseason, DraftKings had put out data of ownership from the first 2 months of drafts, of basically the ownership, how things were paired together. And it was about 41% correlation between Fields and Garrett Wilson. I do believe if you take Fields and Fields hits his true ceiling, not just getting the rushing upside, but also getting there more as a passer, as a guy I think showed at least league average ability for the Steelers last year. Now he's going to an offense that should be a little bit, I think, more tailored to him, and also have some more downfield aggressive principles, even though it's going to be a run forward offense. Bringing in a Detroit passing game coordinator like Tanner Engstrand, you're thinking you're going to get the best of both worlds as much as one can from a new offensive coordinator guy working for the first time in that role. So I believe in the Jets offense kind of hiring the right guys. But also, I just think Fields is good enough for Pittsburgh. Arthur Smith was kind of dink and dunk approach with Fields last year. It worked well enough. I think the Jets will have enough on tape to see what worked and hopefully enhance that. So I like Fields a lot. On my Splash Play stream earlier in the week, my @SplashPlayPod YouTube channel / Twitter, I also do the streams on there. I mentioned that Justin Fields is one of my priorities this entire offseason, and he has been a guy that's now one of my highest exposed QBs, and I'm pretty comfortable with that. So if you don't have Fields, you want to take a bet that I'm taking. Fields and Garrett Wilson in particular is one. And frankly, you're getting these guys cheaper than I would have thought was possible. Fields, I thought, was going to rise to the 90s. Like, there was a lot of hype behind him. Then he got hurt briefly in training camp, and then people were like, I can't take him anymore. And I don't know. I don't think that's the right way to play it. Caleb Williams here, he would correlate with our DJ Moore bet. So I'm just going to grab that here, grab the second QB. Could definitely start to think about RB Moore, but at this point, Nick Chubb, not a guy I'm down to take a pick 120 because I think he might actually lose work right away to Dameon Pierce. If Joe Mixon is going to be out that first 4 weeks, like it seems, he's on the non-football injury list, might even be out longer. People are now worried Joe Mixon might miss the entire year. Not quite as sold on that. That said, I think Nick Chubb is really overvalued for people's assumption of a really good role being there. And I think it's going to be another running back by committee, and Dameon Pierce, old enough now where he should know better to not be as incompetent as he was as a starter before. I got about 40 entries. There you go. You just got to get some entries in. Christian hasn't been. What are we talking about here? What is? I love interacting with the chat. It's one thing that always brings value to me. When you say gibberish, I don't know what it means. Talk about Christian Kirk. He hasn't been tested. I don't know. Give me something to work with here. Talk about Christianity as a whole. It's a hot take to put in a best ball chat, but you're entitled to it. Guys, show us some love if you can't hit the like button, subscribe. I believe this is your last stream today on Stochastic because it was an early MLB slate, unless the schedule sheet is wrong. Either way, though, do appreciate your guys' support here. We've been doing it all summer long in the world of best ball, so please hit the like button. Please subscribe here. It goes a long way for me and, of course, for the channel here. So Stochastic knows that these streams are not totally irrelevant, even though, God almighty, there is more best ball content than you would ever think possible in the YouTube streets at this stage of things, but a lot of great streamers out there. I appreciate you guys spending time here with me. Like that Fields-Wilson combo, not many people go into that. Well, again, it was 40% owned. It's like when there was data earlier. I mean, this data, again, hasn't been updated since the end of June. This Fantasy VIP site I've showed you guys before. But this is the end of June. It was 39% owned. With Garrett Wilson's price getting cheaper, Fields' price getting cheaper, I assume it's probably at least that 39%, if not 40 to 45. So... yeah, again, it's going to be owned, but they could still be a stack that has a high advance rate. It could still be a stack that maybe those other teams that have him so much aren't built as well as the team you build, and then it spikes in the playoffs. That's my hope. Am I comfortable with RJ Harvey as my RB2 full PPR? So you got Chase Brown. I mean, Chase Brown's a good one. Charbonnet, Krosky, Merritt, Shipley. RJ Harvey can work there. I'm not the biggest RJ Harvey believer. He was a guy that played not the best competition at UCF. Not a guy that also then against that weaker competition showed enough for me in terms of avoided tackle rate, was a plus EPA runner. So I guess I give him a positive on that. I just don't believe in him that much. And I think J.K. Dobbins is brought in for a reason ahead of him. That said, he's a good rookie bet. That room seems fine enough for me. And you have the anchor back, which is what you need, I presume, for redraft. So that's fine. If that were a best ball team, I'd probably be a little bit less enthused, but still honestly would be fine, I guess. All right, we're on the clock here. Nick Chubb hanging around. I fudded him down so I could take him. But no, not at all. I'd rather go Braylon Allen here, keep building out the RB room a little bit more. Braylon Allen, a guy I've been buying since he was going in the 180s in best ball drafts. Now you see him here in the 125 range. He's a guy that I think is one of the preseason winners as well. Getting short down and distance work for the Jets does probably portend him having that goal line role. I think he's also better as a pass catcher than people realize, even though I think, so is Brian Robinson. And frankly, once you get typecast as being a power back, you just kind of are stuck there. But for Braylon Allen, still a guy that I think now go in the 120 range. Still like that click a lot. Still feel really good about him, in fact. So Braylon Allen going to be my RB here. So my team so far, a 2-4-5-0. Again, hit wide receiver. Pretty hot for a while to catch up, but we did start with 2 RBs and a QB. Josh Allen, Christian McCaffrey, Devon Achane, Devontae Adams, DJ Moore, Deebo Samuel, Stephon Diggs, little value on him. Not something I think the historical data will tell you the picture enough. If you're looking at, in particular, just like big DraftKings tournaments, if you look at the larger history of best ball in general, I think 2 QB builds would do a little bit better. That said, there has been enough research in recent years. Like, if you're taking, in my opinion, taking QBs from this Caleb Williams range, let's say it's like the Cam Ward range, you probably want 3 QBs there. If you're taking an elite QB, the sim data would, I think, still support going 3 QBs, but I'm not sold that's actually the case quite as much. For me, one of my best teams finishing on underdog was a 1 QB build because Trey Lance got hurt in week 1. That was a team that finished top 100 in Best Ball Mania. Or top 200 rather. Sorry. Don't want to misquote myself because people will fucking jump on it. But that team lost Trey Lance early. Joe Burrow carried me the entire year. And then Cincinnati Buffalo in week 17 ruined everything. DeMar Hamlin, stupid heart. Can we joke about that now? Maybe not. I think you could survive with 1 QB. So I would tend to say you could do better with less. But for me, it just comes down for everything. Like if you don't take an early guy, tight end, probably want to take 3 tight ends. If you don't take early receiver, you probably want to get to 7 receivers. You don't take early RB, you want to get to 6 RBs. I would say with QB, if you don't take an early QB, you probably want to get to 3. Hopefully that's explains the entire picture well enough. 2-4-5-0 build is what we have going here. Tank Bigsby falling a little bit. Josh Palmer available here. I want to get the Buffalo correlation a little bit better. I feel like RB in this room is kind of having some guys fall that I'm still comfortable with. But at this point, I've got 4 RBs. We spent that early RB capital on McCaffrey and Achane. So just want to round out my stacking a little bit here, go Josh Palmer, and get a Buffalo double. And really, to me, I don't love taking builds where the receivers are kind of similar archetypes. Shakir and Palmer, I think, do a very similar thing. Keon Coleman with this build would be a little bit more logical. But Buffalo, you kind of just got to take what you get in a Buffalo stack with Josh Allen. So 2-4-6-0 build, Josh Allen, Christian McCaffrey, Devon Achane, Devontae Adams, DJ Moore, Deebo Samuel, Stephon Diggs, Khalil Shakir as wide receiver 5, and Palmer 6. I think that all fits the amount of wide receiver capital we need after starting so RB heavy. We also have Travis Etienne, Braylon Allen at RB, and then Caleb Williams, part of a San Francisco-Chicago Week 17 stack. And that's all cool to me. Like the build. Become obvious you love fading the tight end position. I mean, it's really the main thing is just that you can get 4 late, and I think really in a 20-round draft especially, not feel bad about it. There's just too many starters late is really the main thing. But Kincaid also falls enough in rooms that sometimes I don't say it out loud, but like I'm hoping the guy comes back. If he doesn't, really not a big deal to me. But I'd rather have Palmer than Kincaid, I think. Personal preference on that. ADP would go Kincaid's way. So certainly you could tie break against me on that one. I think it'd be totally fair to do it. I'm not a Kincaid guy at this point. I really believed in him a lot too, coming out of college, because he destroyed USC a few times. I just think Josh Palmer is more of a player they need who can do multiple things, hopefully. Even though I do think he does kind of a similar route forward guy like a Khalil Shakir would be, not like a power end zone target like Keon Coleman would be in the best possible world. But Kincaid is also that same thing, and he also loses snaps to whenever Dawson Knox is healthy enough. So I don't know. Not crazy about the pieces of Kincaid. And I also needed more, in my opinion, like you need a sixth receiver at this point more for the team. But look, been totally valid as well to take Kincaid and not be mad about it. Shout out to all you guys watching live here. Do make sure to hit that like button, subscribe. We'll go a long way as well here because we're trying to show the world of Stochastic that best ball does matter, even though DFS is obviously going to be always the bread and butter here on Stochastic. All right, 2460 build. Don't foresee going with a third QB right now. Ollie Gordon, a guy I don't have much of, but definitely a huge riser to highlight here if you want to go that way. Zach Ertz ends our tight end not run here, our lack of tight end. And Zach Ertz is a guy to me, I'm actually low on DraftKings, but other sites out there, Underdog and Drafters, the two major best ball platforms. I actually do like going Zach Ertz's way a good amount. And I think really to me, DraftKings full point PPR, even more so. I would say if you want to kind of critique Zach Ertz, having Deebo Samuel in there, you're talking about a major mouth to feed, one that absolutely is going to cut into like the red zone equity that Ertz showed a little bit of last year in particular down the stretch heading into the playoffs. But I like Zach Ertz enough. And I think for me, if he's part of a 3 tight end or 4 tight end build, I think it's a better projected one. So Zach Ertz, pick 151, my pick. Do I think Minion will play? Who's Minion? Do I think the Minions from Despicable Me will play? No, I don't think so. Milton? Talking about Joe Milton? No. I don't know. Oh, Mixon? That's again, guys, please, if you're gonna put a chat in, make it something I can read and understand. I know we just ran into this earlier in the stream, and I try my best to decipher. But I don't Minion. Come on. I think Mixon will play this year. I think people are panicking about coaches and GMs being a little bit glib about it. I also think they're not happy with him because the rumors are that he apparently might have done a procedure in the offseason that they didn't approve of. But them going like, we'll see in 4 weeks, like that's just gamesmanship at a certain point. And D'Amico Ryans in particular saying something like that, like he's kind of a boomer football guy in a lot of ways. You saw how much Houston ran the ball last year and the kind of bullheaded way they did that. I think D'Amico Ryans is one of those guys where like he's going to play it close to the vest where the Mixon's not playing or he is going to play in week 5. On the clock here, Ray Davis correlates with Buffalo here. I think in particular, he probably hits more so in games where that Buffalo stack part with Josh Allen and the 2 receivers, Shakir and Palmer, are not hitting. Certainly, if they're just going nuts, Ray Davis punching in some goal line touchdowns, a possibility. Ray Davis last year actually had a pretty good red zone role. 1.3 red zone rushes a game, 0.1 red zone targets a game. The latter part's nothing special, but he was involved pretty well, for a guy who was in year 1. James Cook's getting paid new money, so maybe that does suck some more work away, but Cook got 16 touchdowns last year, so I think there's enough for Ray Davis to pick 162 to justify taking him here. But let's give the team a read. Maybe I can recalibrate myself a little bit down the home stretch. 2-5-6-1 build. At this point, I think I'm probably going to cruise towards a 4 tight end build because I feel pretty good at every position at this point, and that's when I think you add more somewhere else. But we got Josh Allen, Christian McCaffrey, Devon Achane, Devontae Adams, DJ Moore, Deebo Samuel, Zach Ertz, Stephon Diggs, Khalil Shakir is wide receiver 5. So again, that enough capital, I think, at receiver after starting late. So that's really the main goal for me when we do go with a heavy kind of non-wide receiver start with 2 RBs and 1 QB. Travis Etienne, Caleb Williams, Braylon Allen, Josh Palmer, Ray Davis. So despite having the 2 early RBs, we've gotten 5 RBs. Like I think that's enough. We'll certainly add some more on top here. Not a lot of late correlation to love. There you go. Could do a Zacchaeus late. Could do Cole Kmet as one of my tight ends. Got some flexibility there. We got Mixon and Mixon, yeah. So for Mixon, I've taken the Mixon dip. I also thought when he was going the 50s and we assumed he'd be healthy, thought he was still a good click there. The big thing for Mixon for me, so and this is like I think a key part of the equation, and really the money part is something in best ball that matters more, like who's getting paid what in their contracts. You guys probably know that part, but also like who's not getting paid for something. Nixon being on the non-football injury list, not getting paid money unless the team decides to pay him out of the goodness of their heart. He's not getting paid while he's on the NFI list. So Mixon's a guy throughout his career, as you probably know, played through a ton of injuries. I feel like he's one of those guys always banged up, wearing, fucking tons of padding and things like that. But he plays through stuff. I think Mixon's going to want to get paid this year and get out there. So I think he'll get out there. That said, what foot procedure he did can matter a good amount too, if he did certain things. I've seen some of the Twitter PT guys that sometimes right, sometimes incredibly wrong, but saying if he got like a platelet rich therapy thing, he might be out like 3 months. Is he still worth it in best ball at that point? Depends where you're paying for him. We're on the clock here though. 2561 build. Check Okonkwo, a guy that doesn't correlate with anything we're doing, but I still feel good about as a play. So I'm going to grab Okonkwo here. Taking Xavier Leggett at this point, I think would also be a credible thing to do. Adam Thielen shipped out of town there, opens up an every down role for Leggett that might have been a little bit at risk with Jalen Coker starting out play him to some extent. I don't think it would have mattered a ton, really. Leggett still would have been out there a good amount. But also with Thielen, it's a guy that in that Carolina offense was a Bryce Young safety blankie. Last year had a 21% target per out run rate. Leggett last year with Thielen playing, he had 21.3%, exact same amount as Thielen. You take Thielen out of the equation, add Ted McMillan in, it's still going to be pretty good overall for Leggett. So Leggett, to me, one of those guys going a little bit late in drafts because people, I think, just didn't see enough exciting things about him. I think he is now a much stronger play than people are like willing to click him. People still take Coker ahead of him, and I don't think that's correct. Thielen in this room, by the way, for what it's worth, fell a little bit behind where he was going on DraftKings. He was previously going top 140-ish, depending on the room. And now here, being with the trade to Minnesota for him, which I think is probably a lateral move. Thielen goes to 150 in this room. Is it Leggett? I thought it's Leggett. I don't know. Probably say both. He says things an entirely different way than I speak, so I would trust his word on it, but I don't know. Coker's a huge sleeper. Bryce spanned him at times. He didn't really. I mean, Coker's target per out run was under 20%, 17.7% target per out run. He was efficient. I mean, I think Coker ran really hot last year. So again, why I use EPA is it allows me to kind of understand stuff in like an efficiency-based context. 1.9 EPA per target on downfield targets for Coker last year. He did get 0.6 red zone targets a game, which is pretty good for a guy that wasn't really in the mix the entire season, only played 11 games. I think he ran hot with efficiency. He only had a 17.7% target per out run. Like Dontavian Wicks, people don't like him this year, but he got targeted 30% of the time he ran a route. Like that's usually, to me, the big signifier for a guy mattering a lot. Bryce targeted him, but it was more like big plays. It was more, high point plays, high value touches, I guess is what he got from it. I would still think the first round target earner who was good in college or good enough in college. And Leggett's the guy that should be there compared to a UDFA out of Holy Cross. But they're both very draftable. 2562 here. I mean, really not a lot of Philadelphia correlation left. I don't really think we're dying for a sixth RB. Will Shipley's not a guy I take very often. Certainly there's some world here. And some people out there say for best ball, you're drafting like you're going to win whatever multiverse that this team is in. Maybe there's a world where Saquon Barkley gets hurt. We have Shipley going into week 17 and a matchup versus Josh Allen. That's a possibility. So if not, we just have a game stack for a guy who probably doesn't have much of a role behind Saquon. So a 2662 build right now. We got another 4 rounds left. At least one more tight end coming for me. We got Josh Allen, Christian McCaffrey, Devon Achane. So the hope here when you take 2 RBs early is these guys are going to make the roster a lot. So you just want to spend a less RB capital overall. And I think we did that fairly well here. Devontae Adams starting late at receiver, getting him still feels pretty good as wide receiver 1. DJ Moore, Deebo Samuel, Zach Ertz, a Washington double without the QB, while still having another elite QB, which is something I think is kind of fun conceptually, even if we'll see how it works in best ball. But taking like a Mark Andrews with Josh Allen stack, taking maybe a Buffalo receiver with Lamar, taking Washington here without Jaden Daniels. I think it could be a fun way to play elite QB and maybe get some theoretical leverage. Who knows? If nothing else, we get a Washington double here, so that's fine. Stephon Diggs, Khalil Shakir, Travis Etienne, Caleb Williams, part of my Chicago Niners stack for week 17. Braylon Allen, Josh Palmer, part of the Buffalo stack. Ray Davis, same thing. Chikakonkwo, just a tight end who I think is properly valued in this room. He's going crazy early in some other sites out there, though. I saw Chikakonkwo go in like the 12th round today. I like Chig, but he was like in the 18th round, the 20th round on DraftKings for a large portion of drafts. We don't go too crazy on Chig. And Will Shipley, not a guy I think has a major role unless Saquon goes down. But, he flashed in the preseason. People are excited about him. I'm not. I think he's just kind of a volume guy. He was at Clemson at the very least, but that's it. So happy with the team. Can't always be so happy with your teams, but this one I like. A lot of nice picks here still. Look, I want to get the tight end. I do like getting more Troy Franklin, a guy that I loved last year. Didn't take quite as much of. I was still above the field, I think. It's above the field, at least on a couple sites. I'm going to check in a different tab here. So I'm curious how much Troy Franklin I have. Yeah, I've got 10% Troy Franklin, including 14% on DraftKings. So I've gotten enough. But Troy Franklin, really good preseason. A guy that last year spiked in the playoff a little bit here, 50-yard touchdown in that game versus Buffalo. I loved him coming out of Oregon. Thought he would have a better year one run out, but he kind of got stuck in a morass there. Maybe made too many mistakes in camp. Devon Vele, having more experience, played ahead of him. But Franklin now, he's been going real early in rooms as well. Getting him at 199 here feels really nice, actually. This range, actually, Ayumanor, Horton, Troy Franklin, all risers at this room. Coker as well at 189. Feel like this room is a little bit less aggressive on some of the risers than others might be out there. So that worked pretty well. Literally just got sniped on Chig. Someone grabbed him at 154 on underdog. Yeah, that'll happen. Think Khalil Shakir is the biggest steal on the board this year. I would ask why, I guess. I like Shakir. I do think he has some flaws, the same Christian Kirky kind of flaws and touchdown equity, things like that. But certainly there's upside there. Let's see what Drafter Master does here. He's thinking about it. You got to take that whole clock in round 18. You got to really think about it. He says sarcastically. It's always the best to see when like the guy takes the whole clock and he just takes whoever is on the top of the queue anyway. Oh, Raheem Mostert. Okay, that dug deep. That guy dug a little bit deeper than I would have given him credit for. We'll go Harold Fannin with this pick now. Harold Fannin, I think a late riser as well, playing with the first team in the preseason. Not necessarily expected. Harold Fannin also beat up Bowling Green level competition last year, which is a thing, I would say for him, Rashee Rice graded out similarly to me, different position, but playing at SMU, not the highest caliber of competition, but the target earning was so elite. The efficiency was pretty elite as well for Rashee Rice. He was a guy that I liked a little bit his rookie year because of that. And then that ended up being, a pretty beneficial stand to have some amount of. For Harold Fannin, it's the same thing, but my concern would be that you have Njoku there being paid decent money. Njoku is under the last year's contract. There's some people out there, including Cleveland beat reporters, that think you could see Njoku get traded mid-season to a contender if there is one that, let's say Mark Andrews goes down, Isaiah Likely's recovery didn't work. Maybe you get Njoku to Baltimore kind of thing. I don't know if Cleveland, Baltimore trade, but that kind of example is what I would say more so. That's a possibility. If you get that case, probably be a really pure run out for Harold Fannin. Unfortunately, probably having to deal with Dylan Gabriel and Shador starting down the home stretch. But Fannin getting a touchdown in the preseason with the first team, surprising to me, to be honest. There was a drumbeat for him getting work with the first team in the preseason. But yeah, he's the guy that I think getting some priority exposure to him now, especially if you can still get him at round 18 here, I would do it. Whenever I have the first pick, I let it auto draft Chase. I mean, I take Chase whenever I'm there. I don't let it auto draft it, but I do take it. Josh Allen of 3,700 or so yards. I think the ADP isn't reflecting what the Bills will do. Okay. There's a lot of touchdowns that are going to go to running backs. A lot of touchdowns going to go to Josh Allen. That's the tough part for a lot of receivers is generally you want to have touchdown equity be a part of the upside. And I think he does take away a good amount of that. We started tight end pretty late, so I think going a fourth one would not be crazy here. The board at this point, I really don't feel like I'm missing out on much of anything. So I'm just going to go Cole Kmet here. We got our Chicago stack. We didn't get Colston Loveland. Didn't really get any of the secondary receivers for Chicago besides DJ Moore. So I'll add on Cole Kmet here, tight end 4. And like our guy Chunk the Deuce, who's also a regular on my Splash Play channels, he knows my drafting style probably pretty well. Again, I didn't take the early tight end capital. Didn't take anybody who's that good, like Zach Ertz is the best guy here. Even though I like Zach Ertz, I like Chig. It's 20-round draft here, and I have enough at receiver, have enough at RB. I think putting some more towards tight end is something that I'm doing this year for my builds that I think data does support, but certainly your mileage may vary. People really get uncomfortable with like taking a bunch of tight ends late, and this is the year to do it, I think. Though, frankly, I thought the same thing last year with guys like Juwan Johnson, and that didn't work out, so your mileage may vary. But if you can, guys, show some love. Hit that like button. Subscribe. You guys know the deal here. Going to be a lot. I'm going to be doing some more with Stochastics NFL season. So please do help me continue to look good here as much as I can do that relative to my own face and my own work. But please do hit that like button. Please subscribe here and leave a comment if you want to. I do usually check the video after the fact and give some replies if anybody has anything that's worth replying to. I say that sounds like I'm being dismissive. But like if it's not just like, hey, cool, like an emoji. But even that, I reply to those too. So I reply to every comment on the Stochastic streams. So leave a comment if you watch after the fact. And stay tuned as well. Important legalese coming up for DraftKings Best Ball. But the big thing you guys need to know right now, still have a shot at reduced rate in the DraftKings Million Maker Tournament. I don't know how that's going to go. But also, the big thing is that $15 million prize pool, $2 million to first place. More money than you're going to win in Best Ball. But still a lot of great DFS opportunities coming up on DraftKings. That said, the Best Ball payout is so big. So that's what we're hoping for here. Even if you're only putting in one entry and getting one for free in that DraftKings Million Maker Tournament, you're still only setting one lineup, letting it do all the work for you, and hopefully it will pay off if you follow some of the general rules of thumb of Best Ball that we talk about in this video, including the 3 rules of thumb I gave in the beginning of the video. So ADP, stacking, correlation, week 17, being mindful of that if you want the Cliff Notes version. But go draft some teams. Really the main thing, especially if you have money in your DraftKings account. Build a few. Don't build stupid teams if you can. Build really cool ones. Fun, flirty ones. All right, 2-6-7-4 build. Take a 5th tight end for the bit. Tight end looking pretty bad at this stage, though. Tommy Fedone. Who's going to throw him the ball now that DeVito's gone? Greg Dulcich. He's down in the Miami practice squad. If Darren Waller somehow doesn't work out, Greg Dulcich maybe one more shot at life. Let's make this last pick here. This guy loves taking the whole clock. Nothing worse than the last few rounds than the whole clock. All right, Diami Brown. Not a bad click at all. I'm going to go Malik Washington, another late riser here. Kind of surprised he hung around until round 20. Will Dissly, I don't mind. He earned targets pretty well for the Chargers, but I have no correlation there. And Dissly now getting competition from Oronde Gatson and also Tyler Conklin. So the run out wasn't that good for Dissly last year, and he still got targeted a bunch. I don't think it's great for Dissly now at this point. The final team here, a 2-6-8-4. Josh Allen, Christian McCaffrey, Devon Achane. So RB Piggy / Elite QB start here. But I think we made it work pretty well. Devontae Adams, DJ Moore, part of my Chicago Niners stack, including McCaffrey. Deebo Samuel, Zach Ertz, Washington double without the QB. Stephon Diggs, Khalil Shakir is wide receiver 5. So the fact that I got wide receiver done that early, I think makes up for starting it kind of late. Travis Etienne, Caleb Williams, part of my Niners Chicago stack. Braylon Allen, Josh Palmer, Buffalo stack. Ray Davis, Buffalo stack. Chikakonkwo making it up at tight end. Will Shipley, not a guy I'm excited for, but as RB6, why not? Correlates for week 17 as well. Troy Franklin, Harold Fannin, Cole Kmet, Malik Washington. The fact that I got these 3 late risers here kind of surprises me. Cole Kmet, absolutely not a late riser. And in fact, almost the exact opposite. But he's a guy that's gotten some positive camp talk about being one of the better red zone targets for the Bears from Ben Johnson. So I needed him probably as part of this build, or at least, thought he made sense. But getting Fannin, getting Franklin, getting Malik Washington, and getting a Chig too, honestly. I like this team. I think the team worked out pretty well for how I view things. Check the chats one more time. And snagging Dissly and some underdog. Just a lot of competition there. It's a lot of competition. And also, you also have more competition at receiver now too, with Trey Harris coming in, obviously Keenan Allen coming in. I don't think there's a lot of upside for tight end there, but maybe you get a few 2-touchdown games because you have really good targeters around the tight end room. But it's crowded there. Starting line for my draft today, Goff, Henry, Connor. I just love reading teams. Connor, Collins, Worthy, Shakir. Laporta, Kittle. Wouldn't probably go Laporta and Kittle, but the team's pretty nice besides that. Shakir as wide receiver 3 is kind of thin to me. I got him here as wide receiver 5. I think in most rooms, you should probably be your 4 guy. And then you add like a Christian Kirk, Marvin Mims tier guy as 5, sort of the way that I think it works best. Draft capital-wise, but follow your heart. And follow your heart right now to listen to Greg Ehrenberg. Of course, you hear him doing great content all the time here in the world of MLB, soon to be in NFL as well. Hear him do great work right now in the world of reading DraftKings legalese for this Best Ball Millie Maker tournament.
It's best ball season, and DraftKings is giving all customers a can't-miss offer. Draft one, get one. Enter a lineup in the $15 million best ball contest for just $20, and you'll score another best ball ticket to play free for a share of $15 million, giving you a second chance to win big. Download the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app now to draft your $20 best ball lineup to play for a share of $15 million and get a second ticket to play free for a share of $15 million. That's 2 chances to win big without ever setting your lineup again. Draft one, get one, only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY at 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. 18 plus in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. Eligibility restrictions do apply and void where prohibited. 1 per customer. Enter the Best Ball $15 million headliner contest by September 4th, 2025 to get 1 bonus entry. $20 entry fee required. Reward expires in 30 days. See terms at DraftKings.com/NFL-best-ball, sponsored by DraftKings.
Great line reading there. Love to hear from Greg Ehrenberg. Appreciate all you guys watching live. Do hit that like button. Do subscribe. One last question. Does Fant make a late season run? He'll be out in the field a little bit. Not a guy I've taken very much of. I'd rather have Gesicki, who is kind of a functional wide receiver 3 for that team. But Fant getting a version of the Tanner Hudson role there that's spiked a little bit in the past. It's possible, but, look, if you're doing like a build like I just did here, you're taking 3-4 tight ends. Take Fant there. If he's your second tight end in a 2 tight end build, I would not take Noah Fant and trust him that much. Even if he hits, it's just the projection I don't think would work out that well to do the math. But shout out to all you guys hanging out. Again, we'll see if there are streams in Best Ball next week. I think there's a shot at there being one on Tuesday, so stay tuned for that. If not, I do appreciate all you guys being with me here on Stochastic of this draft cycle here. We started pretty early in the Best Ball process. I've been doing it every Tuesday and Thursday since then, so I do appreciate you guys. And shout out to the team behind the scenes as well for giving me that runway to do it. I do appreciate all you guys who've hung out with me, who've been here, who've drafted with me on stream as well as we go on DraftKings, which I think is a site that's really important to play on, get some action in, even though some of the other sites out there, I feel like the luster there of winning on those sites maybe makes people a little bit blind to it. Playing on DraftKings, the money is just as big and it's full point PPR, and you probably know the scoring like the back of your hand from playing NFL DFS. I think for you guys on Stochastic in particular, like you should be playing on DraftKings, getting some best ball action in, max the play action, as well as some of the smaller tournaments if you can. It's good action on DraftKings this year in best ball. They've done a really good job prioritizing making it a good experience for everybody, and I really am pleased to see that. So if I don't see you guys again for best ball here on Stochastic, I do appreciate all you guys hanging out, and shout out to DraftKings for helping me put on the show and allowing me to put on the show, and for being a good site to play best ball on this year, which is all also that we all care for. So gamble responsibly, guys. Go do some smart stuff. And check out my @SplashPlayPod YouTube channel as well, where I'll be doing another round of drafts, including on DraftKings tomorrow and the other big best ball platforms as well, as I make a run on it'll be my last try draft-a-thon. So that's tomorrow, 12 p.m. on my @SplashPlayPod channel. Check it out. See you guys again soon. Enjoy your days. Good luck. And hey, happy NFL season, guys. It's coming soon. All right. Bye, guys.